shooting down in the woods. He wouldn't leave it even if he could. 'Cause life is good, yeah!
Hickok45 here, your internet shooting companion, coming to you from Middle Tennessee. Yes, paradise. Home of Alvin York, Dolly Parton, many others that too many to mention, right? Well, here we are again, about ready to ramble at you. I hope you're ready to hear some rambling, and I hope you've had a great week. Hope you're in a good mood, or if you're in a bad mood, maybe a little gun talk will cheer you up. Yeah, it's always good to hear about firearms if you enjoy shooting. And I guess mostly what I ramble about are firearms, you think? I don't know, kind of a mix. So that's, my little radio show. I can sort of talk about whatever I want, and that's the cool thing about it. But try to talk about firearms mostly and firearms-related topics mostly, right? Yeah, maybe you don't agree. I must say, I do still feel a little guilty calling it a radio show. That's what John wanted to call it, so so be it. Can't talk him out of it. So it's pretty nice having a radio show, quote unquote, where I don't have to worry about advertisers and trying to get a sponsor this week for this segment or this slot and all that sort of thing. Of course, it's because that's not my gig, not my main thing. As some others in the business do, and obviously they do it for a variety of reasons. They do it. They want to make some cash to fund it, of course, and maybe to fund their income. That's their business. That's their job. That's what they do, and it's about firearms, and so that's all good, right? And I know I didn't even mean to talk about. I just never know what I'm going to talk about. But there are a lot of people in the media, the gun media, that, in fact, most really of any size, almost all of any size, that they are really tied to advertisements and sponsorship from firearms companies or firearms accessory companies and that sort of thing. And we do get a little maybe weary, maybe a little wary, of it at times. But we can all see through that. And if we have anybody listening who is anti-capitalistic, which is probably not many, that's the way the world turns. It's what most of the world, or at least the better parts of the world, I would say, as in this country, the good old USA, where so many great innovations come about through the profit incentive, the desire to make money doing something you enjoy doing, and there are a lot of folks. I probably criticize some of those folks from time to time, but not in any serious way. It's all good when we get right down to it. Think about all the shows on TV that are gun related, where people are demonstrating firearms or training or whatever they're doing. They have to be sponsored by somebody. They really, even we have to have some sponsorship to keep this thing going. We have an enormous, amount of expenses. And, but we're kind of just dependent on Google, so there's no one company that drives us at all, or 3 companies or 5 companies or any companies. It's just Google. As long as Google continues to support, what we're doing and others, then, we're fine. So it's kind of nice. We can remain independent and do what we do. But YouTube's a little different. It's a little unique in that regard. There are a lot of people that have TV shows and different kinds of shows and programs and even radio shows, and they've got to have sponsorship. And so anyway, how to get off on all that? I was saying how nice it is to have a radio show where I don't have to worry about all that. I just turn on my recorder and gab at you, and then again, as long as YouTube keeps supporting us and you all, then we're fine. I don't have to worry about all those details, many details, but not those to deal with. So, speaking of firearms, what firearm do you think I might have with me? I don't know. I might have had the same firearm last time I did one of these. I don't know. I'm old and senile, so who knows? And I go through so many different firearms that come out to the workbench and the reloading room and get shot and get cleaned and all that sort of thing. But what I have right now, let's make it clear. Yeah, Glock 26. Let's have a little praise the Glock 26 segment here. I really do like the baby Glocks, as you know, and I have the same problem you all have, deciding which Glock is the best Glock to carry, best Glock to shoot, most fun to shoot, most practical, and all those things. And I've been carrying the 26 some here lately, and I just really like it. It's it is a 9mm. For some people, that's a disadvantage. I've addressed that. Lots of people address it. Generally speaking, anything 380 and up, and you're probably all right. There's not a lot of difference, especially 9mm and up with modern ammo. There is no magic bullet in a handgun, and there is something to be said. Given the fact there's no magic bullet, there is something to be said for having more rounds, more cartridges. There really is. And so we all go back and forth on that, and I have discussed that at length, I think even in the last show. But anyway, I'm carrying the 9, and that's 11 rounds of 9mm. I was carrying the XDS 9 some too, and same old thing, back and forth. It's a little thinner, but it holds 7+1. This holds 10+1. And then it's so simple to be packing a Glock 17 magazine in the off pocket, or even in a mag pouch, however you want to do it. Think about what you got there, versus some of the other smaller guns. Some of my favorite little pocket guns, the PM9, in terms of capacity, even with, backup magazine, and the XDS even. So, same old thing. I can really pocket carry the XDS. And because I have discovered that, I can do that. I also experiment with the Glock 26 or 27. I can pocket carry those guns, in the Alabama holsters. There's not much difference, so yeah, there we go. Those decisions. Obviously, the PM9 is more comfy. The XDS and the Glock 26 are heavier. Not a lot of difference between the 26 and the XDS if you have a good pocket holster. Just something to think about, It'd be the same on your belt if you're carrying them on your belt. If you're going to carry the XDS on your belt, there's not much difference between it and the Glock 26, the baby Glocks. And you could put in that blank several other firearms. I just happen to, you know me, I happen to have more Glocks, and I'm more Glock oriented. But the M&P or the bigger XDs, XDMs, or what else? The Rugers, SR9C, you name it. They are a little thicker than, say, an XDS. But if you get them up to your belt, certainly there's not much difference. But anyway, got the Glock 26 here, and this is one of my favorite handguns. Bought it used, and boy, it has been used. I have used it extensively. I don't know how much I've talked about that. Maybe in a video somewhere along the way, I have talked about it. I back in the when was it? The late 90s, I guess. I started carrying it almost exclusively after I bought it, and just liked it. I was competing in GSSF matches, the Glock Sports Shooting Foundation matches, and it was just great for that. I was competing in IDPA in the late 90s, later 90s, I don't know, 95, 6, 7, where it was in there, and up to 2000. And I was doing IDPA matches where 9mm made a lot of sense, and the GSSF matches especially made a lot of sense. And of course, I like the Glock 26 anyway, and I went there for a period of years. I think my first GSSF match, I competed with a Glock 27. Then I switched the next year. I placed pretty high in subcompact, third or something, and I'd like to win that. And I think the next year I'd have to look back through the scores. I competed with the Glock 26, I think, and I was second, maybe, I don't know, or third again, or second, I don't know, but I placed well. But I was determined to win subcompact. And if you know anything about the Glock, matches, the Glock sponsors, they have a set stage. As far as I know, they still use the same stages. It's like 3 or 4 different stages, a combination of pepper poppers and tombstone cardboard targets and that sort of thing. But they're exactly the same from year to year to year. Now, they may have changed them in recent years. I haven't kept up with it. But I know it must have been 10 years or 15, basically the same courses of fire. And so I think a lot of people worked on those courses quite a bit. Honestly, believe me, I never did. And isn't that ironic? I had the place, the setting. I could have set those courses up and just worked on them. But I don't know. I never did that when I was competing at IPSC. If I knew about a classifier coming up or anything, I just never done it. I have steel targets. I have some paper targets. Shoot plates, and it's the same, all the same stuff. Where the targets are set, don't really matter. In fact, I always was a little afraid that would jinx me. Work on that exact course of fire, and I don't know, and then go to a match and there is that same course of fire, all the targets at the same distance and everything. I don't know. It doesn't make that much difference. Bullets don't drop much till you get out 100 yards or something. So what difference does it make? You got to move the gun around, find the target, and shoot it. You know where they are. There they are. So I really never, ever did that at all, even on a small scale. But I kept flirting with winning the subcompact class. But again, in my defense, I think there were people who did that. They really worked at it, just like me. They wanted to win subcompact. They were working at it and shooting a lot. In the GSSF matches, you have a lot of people that just wander in, shoot their first match. It's kind of an opportunity for Glock to promote their product and put on a good show and bring the family out and compete and shoot, and they even give prizes based on, I forget what that system's called, but the top third and the second third and the next tier third. You may win a gun if you finish 47th or something. Just depends on how it falls. In fact, you can be pretty good and you fall into the top of that second third, that second third, I think it was thirds. So whatever that is, if they're 30 people, for example, they're usually more than that, but say competing in subcompact, you might be pretty good, finish 9th. Well, you're at the bottom of the first third, right? If my math is correct there. So you don't win anything, but the couple slots below you, the person who finishes in the first place in that second third, that second tier, they win a gun maybe, so, and that adds to the fun, and I think that's fine. That's what it's for. It's great when anybody has a chance to win a gun. It's almost like playing roulette or something. It's just kind of just happens to be where you fall. So that's neat to see somebody win a gun, a free Glock, who really is relatively inexperienced maybe. So that's cool. I had no problem with any of that. But at least in the top tier, you did have that opportunity to shoot as well as you could and maybe win. So I won. So I think they'd give you $100 or some prizes like that if you finish second or third. I forget what it was, but so I won that a couple of times. But I wanted to finish first. So I carried that thing. I shot it. I shot some IDPA matches and just a variety of things. And then whatever it was, 2003 or something, I actually placed first with that thing. And it took every ounce of concentration and focus I could muster. I really have to say I was shooting the very best I possibly could, or I was focusing and trying as hard as I possibly could. And I don't always do that, as you know. That's one reason I didn't go further in IPSC and any of it really. I I enjoyed it, and I can focus, and I can get serious, but I just couldn't get serious every single day and be driven, to be a master class shooter, and just didn't care that much how I did on the classifiers. I just shoot best I could and go on and enjoy what I was doing. Go home, shoot a lever gun, for a couple of weeks. And then pick up my 38 Super or my 9mm or whatever I was competing with, my 1911 45, day or two before the next match, take a few shots and go shoot. I just like too many guns, as you know. So, it's funny, I didn't even mean to talk about this. How did I get off on this? But anyway, I really, with that short sight radius, and there's stock sights, I think in the GSSF, as I recall it, everything had to be stock on the gun anyway. And just those, I think one of the hardest courses was strictly paper targets, and it was the third one, I think, as I recall, was like course number 3 or whatever, stage 3 or 4, where they had an array of the tombstone cardboard targets starting at about, 15 yards or something, and then you had them on out, maybe 5 or 6 different ones, and they were out to, I want to say 30 or 40 yards, pretty far out there. For those tombstone cardboard targets, the same ones I use on my range, you really can't see the circles or anything. And it's just, you're just sort of shooting for the center. And, oh man, y'all who shoot a lot, or you shoot a lot of, maybe shoot competition and shoot cardboard out at those ranges, 40, 50 yards, that sight, if you move it at all, shooting a Glock and everything. But anyway, that was the one. And I knew on that course of fire, because I had shot it, every year for a couple, 3 years, that just the slightest movement, and you may be off the target at that distance, not necessarily out of the high scoring ring, you're off the target, or you're over in the margin where there's no points. And if you get 1 or 2 over in there, you forget it. You're not going to win. You may not even place in the top 3 or something, or 4. And so a lot of pressure and a lot of fun. And I guess the bottom line on this, reason I'm bragging about it, talking about it, is I really have an attachment to this pistol. I carried it so much. I still carry it. And and I won several IDPA matches with, it has carried me through a lot of matches, and it has protected me. And it's just an old used Glock 26, one that was used when I bought it, and it's always functioned fine with about any kind of ammo. So I don't know, it's a gun, and that's one of the reasons I was talking about. I know you have firearms that you have history with, and you develop dare I say, personal relationship with the firearm, in the sense that it just has some, special, meaning or, sentimental value for you. And that one does. Any firearm I've had for a long time develops that, because I just bring it out and shoot it. If I own it, that must mean I liked it, wanted it, and so I take it out and shoot it, and have fun with it. Maybe carry it some and put it back in the safe and bring it out. So over a period of years, you get that character built into it, maybe the wear, or just some history like this one has, and it just turns into kind of a special firearm for you, and one that you're not going to easily trade off, right? Like we all make the mistake of doing at times. We get tired of a firearm and don't have the cash maybe at the time, and so I could trade that. I really want that rifle or that shotgun or that other pistol. I'll just trade this. I can always get one of those again, and a couple of years later you're sorry you traded it off, right? But anyway, that's kind of the history of the gun I have out here today, and the special. What I was going to mention too, as I think I did in the Glock 29 video, when I won that subcompact match in the GSSF, you get to pick out what Glock you want, and I did not have a 10mm at the time, and so I chose a Glock 29, and I think I mentioned that in the Glock 29 video. So anyway, that's the relationship between those two guns, and that's another gun. Because of that, I'm not nearly as fond of the Glock 29. I like it fine. So the sentimental value it has is kind of the significance, tied to this gun, and that period of time there where I was kind of focused on trying to win a subcompact match, and once I did that, okay, that was that. I don't know if that was the last one I shot in or not, but I couldn't surpass that, and so I wasn't quite as motivated to do that. And I think that was a kind of time period where I was really winding down on, and I was doing some cowboy shooting, and I just wasn't as interested in fighting that game and blowing off a lot of rounds, trying to get ready for matches and all that kind of thing. But anyway, history of my little Glock 26, which I dearly love. Ooh, the anti-gunners love to hear us say things like that, don't they? How we love a gun. I meant to talk about well, I don't know if it's an incident, but although it's kind of funny, it happened, a couple months ago at least, I guess. It was funny. John and I went to a gun show, and actually separate cars. He's always a late riser. We met there, but he was telling me, I left before he did. It was funny. He was telling me after the show later that day that he went by a booth. Someone had body armor, and he was walking by. He was just got to talking to the guy who was selling the body armor. He may have been selling other things too, and I don't know how it came up, but the fellow got to talking about maybe. I think John had said something about doing YouTube videos just in a general sense or something, and the guy made the comment, oh yeah, we have people do our body armor in YouTube videos, but they never get it right. They never do the test right. People like Hickok, and I think you mentioned someone else maybe, they don't do the test right or something, and they're not valid tests or all this kind of stuff. And John said, I don't think Hickok's done any of those, has he? And yeah, him and some or whatever. And John said, well, I hold the camera for all the videos, and I don't remember this. Anyway, it was kind of funny. I think the guy, he was a nice guy apparently, and did sort of backpedal on that, but it made me think about that. It brought to mind how I just wonder how many like rumors are out there, things like that, just because we have so many videos now and so many subscribers that there's got to be stuff like that we don't even know about, people probably positive and negative, right? People who give us credit for things we didn't do or like us too much, better than we deserve, or like that, blame things on us that we don't deserve. There's no telling what's out there on the forums or other channels or comments and everything else. But anyway, it's one advantage of, I think, having so many videos, and I have so many radio shows now and vlogs and everything, and so the people who are subscribed and the loyal viewers or anybody who wants to know that's seen very many videos ought to know us by now and ought to know me by now. It's hard to hide who you are. It's hard to, people probably make up stuff, but that's okay. But anyway, I thought that was funny. I wish I had been the one that walked by and struck up a conversation with him. That would have been funny, especially if the guy didn't recognize me. He had told me that, Hickok45 been doing some tests with my body armor and he doesn't do it right. And, I could have apologized, said something like, yeah, I'm sorry. I know I didn't do it right. Probably because I didn't do it at all. We've never done any body armor tests. Oh, anyway, funny stuff, really. So I guess by now you have seen the infamous Glock and black powder video. So hopefully you weren't too shocked. John's been telling me, trying to get me to do that for a while. I meant to say that in a video, blame that on John, and I didn't give him enough credit, but he has been after me on that, and I don't know, John, I guess it'd be interesting to see if it would work. I don't know. I've got about 5 reloading projects, and I can't seem to get to any of it, and to experiment with that's got to be down the road. So I was probably a couple of months, getting around to it. I got a bunch of 44s loaded. I was in progress on some 44s with these pulled bullets, and I finished up, I don't know, I must have loaded close to 1,000 of those, and then I had to get my 45 Colt stockpile back up. I was almost down to nothing in terms of modern powder. It has some black powder, 45 Colt loaded, but yeah, I must have loaded close to 1,000 of those. So, over a couple of months, I've caught up on my hand loading. 4570, got all my cases filled. I was low on that as well. In fact, I was going to order, I don't know, a couple hundred 4570 cases, and while I had the die set up and powder and everything, you know how it is if you hand load, you want to, at least I am, I want to, catch up. When I change the press over to a caliber and I'm low on, I say, okay, let's load up a bunch of it, and then I'll switch to another caliber. And so, I load enough for a couple of years sometimes, but anyway, because I shoot a lot, if you haven't noticed. So where was I going with this? Oh yeah. And so anyway, I've got the 4570 loaded. I couldn't find any brass. Couldn't find any 4570 brass. I thought I was order some Starline. Nope, they're out of stock. Midway, Mid-South, Shooter Supply. Maybe there's some somewhere, but I figure, well, all those people are out. I guess I'm okay. I just thought while I was into it, I'd get some more brass, but I was shocked. That many people loading 4570. There's no brass out there. I understand 9mm or something. Everybody getting into, handguns, buying them a pistol and all that, and carry permits. But yeah, I was surprised. So anyway, then I didn't have any excuse, and I was out here the other day, and I said, okay, John's been after me on this thing. I guess we can do this. We can try this. And because I have a lot of experience, loading black powder cartridges, 4570 and 45 Colt shotgun shells, and different loads, trying out different loads in the 45 Colt, and using not patches, but cardboard wads, trying to say. And so I went through a lot of experimentation with that. I know the power of a certain amount of powder, and all that kind of thing. I know the pressures of black powder. It's it's just not as dangerous as smokeless powder. It doesn't take much smokeless powder to create a lot of pressure very, very fast. But it generally takes a bigger bulk of 45 or of black powder. In fact, that's the problem. That's why the cases of the old days were so big. Big old 4570. If you wanted more power, you had the 4590. They just had to make a longer case that would hold more powder. So you end up with those big cases. Whereas today, think about it, if you wanted a 45 caliber bullet, 400 or 500 grains, whatever it is, trucking out there at a speed you want, you don't need a case as long as a 4590, right? But anyway, I digress. So I knew there was no problem with it. The problem would be, as I think mentioned in the description, was getting enough powder in a 45 ACP case to even function a slide. I know it would function, it would fire, and it would function okay, but it might not get the slide back. And so I had some powder in out, and with a dipper and everything I used for shotgun shells, and so it was Elephant, I think, some old Elephant powder. I don't believe they make it anymore, but it was 3F. That's what I used in my shotgun shells for cowboy shooting. And so I tried some of that first, filled up the case as much as would make sense, and to where the bullet would be seated right down onto the powder, and that's what you want to do with black powder. You can even compress it slightly, but I don't think it was compressed. It was just down on the powder. It wasn't really pressing it. And I fired a couple of those, and it did not work the slide. It did not. So I thought, oh, this isn't going to work. There was a part of me that said, good, okay, now I can tell John, sorry, John, this isn't going to work, so there's no need to fool with it. Get my gun all dirty, never be able to clean it properly because of the black powder crud and stain. And then I thought, well, got some new Go-X, just bought, and I've got some 4F, which you use it's the finest grain of black powder, it's mostly used in the pan for a flintlock, for priming powder. So in other words, you understand the the granules in 1F, 2F, 3F, 4F is different sizes. Just think of gravel. With 1F you got big chunks, just like gravel, little mini gravel, and then 3F is pretty big too in terms of the chunks, and 3F is a little smaller, and then 4F is really small. It's almost like powder, really, almost like, not quite like baking powder or anything, but it is more like that, closer to it. Very, very fine granules. So you end up with more in the case. You end up with more power, more pressure. Something to remember if you ever start loading cases. I know when I first started loading 45 Colt, I used 2F, and I wasn't getting the velocity that I wanted out of the amount I was putting in there. And I went to 3F, and that worked better. Got more power. Okay, so let me try the 4F, and so I can give it the good old college try here before I give up on it. So I got the 4F out and put the same amount in the case up to the base of the bullet. I loaded 3 or 4, went out on the range, fired it. It seemed to work. It was a weird feel, but it cycled the slide. So I just fired a couple of those to make sure it worked, and that's it. I didn't want to dirty up the gun before we did this thing. This is a one-time deal, believe me. I have no desire to do it again. I don't want to, get that gun crudded up again once I ever get it cleaned. So, so again, the issue is getting enough powder in that case to actually work it, because 45 is not a Magnum, but you need a pop to get that thing out of there and work that slide. It's not a gigantic case, and you need bulk generally with black powder. So it worked, and we did it. Again, it was mainly just to show that it can be done, and that the Glock would work throughout an entire magazine of rounds, even getting it, because after 4 or 5 rounds, it was filthy. Lots of crud in the chamber. Now, not necessarily down, as you saw, not necessarily down in the gun, down in the frame, but where it counts, in the chamber and in the barrel. And so, for whatever it was worth, in that sense, it was kind of a torture test, a reliability test to see if it would still fire after firing, a handful of those, and fire another handful, through an entire magazine, 14 rounds. So it worked. That's all I was willing to do. As I think I mentioned, you're not supposed to shoot, of course, lead through that polygonal rifling, and I didn't know, possibly black powder, different characteristics, maybe it would actually cause more leading or something in that Glock barrel. I didn't know. I'm willing to do some things like that. I wasn't really taking a chance, but do something out there on the edge a little bit. But I didn't want to do anything dangerous. For all I knew, those rounds were starting to lead up the barrel faster. Now I did check it after the 2 test rounds, the 2 different times, and ran a patch through it, and I didn't see any leading in there. The chamber was a mess, but I didn't see any leading in the rifling, the polygonal rifling. So, I wasn't expecting any major problems, but I don't know. Maybe after 8 rounds, there was going to be a problem, because you had the crud factor too. See, even a little bit of leading, plus the black powder crud factor, which hardens up very quickly and is like lead almost in the barrel. So that combination kept me from wanting to shoot more than 1 magazine. Okay, I didn't want to do anything dangerous. So, there could have been the undue pressure issue. I don't know. I didn't know. So 1 magazine was it. There was no interest in shooting 2 magazines. Could have done that. I could have loaded up enough for 2 magazines, but that didn't want to take the chance. Just wanted to see if it would fire. Because really, the chamber and the barrel and everything, after 5 or 6 of those rounds were fired through there, that filthy stuff, it was about as dirty as it was going to get, probably. So from then on, I was afraid possibly there would be some leading, and combined with that crud could be something unsafe. Who knows? And anyway, so but as I think I mentioned that in the description. I don't know. I answered somebody in a comment, I think, about it. But after it was over and I cleaned the barrel, soaked the barrel, as you saw, and I was just messing with y'all with overusing the ballistol. But I did soak some other parts in that. After the barrel soaked, I ran a patch through that barrel, and it was, or 2 or 3 patches. It was clean as a whistle. I mean, it was a mirror in there. So there was no leading. There really was no leading from those 14 shots. So maybe I could have fired a couple, 3 or 5 mags. I don't know, because it was very clean and no leading. So I was pleased. So it was safe. It was safer than I realized. Just weren't taking chances. So anyway, I don't know what that told you. It was more or less a reliability test, with some torturous black powder to demonstrate that, it wouldn't matter what kind of powder you had or if you had some old rounds, as long as you had enough power for the rounds to function. It's hard to mess up a modern pistol, especially a Glock, to the point, get it so dirty, at least in one magazine, that it will not operate. For what it was worth, we just had a little fun. I satisfied John's curiosity. He wanted to do that, so we did it. And for what it was worth, there it is. Don't expect me to do it again. We're not going to, launch off onto some series here now. Okay, black powder cartridges in the 9mm Glock. That's not the plan, believe me. By the way, we've had some fun lately with different firearms. You can always tell we seem to have a variety of things going on, whether we're walking in the woods or doing close-ups or at the shooting table with various firearms. It seems like one day we have a select fire, fully automatic, M16 or something, and then the next day a good old-fashioned revolver, and that's the way I like it. That's because that's the way I've always shot. I go from one genre to another, back and forth. I enjoy them all. Shotguns and fully automatic, single shot. It's all fun. Black powder, modern powder, you name it. Shooting is fun. If you didn't notice that, if you have not experienced it, and I'm sure you have, you're listening to this. But we've had. Let's see. I usually give you all a tip, don't I? That the casual viewer doesn't get. You guys are anything but casual if you're listening to this. What could I spill the beans on here? I mean, nothing too exotic, but we might have a cool Winchester Model 92 coming up for you lever gun fans, and I love it. Yeah, man. I found an old one being rebored to 357. So somebody was sacrilegious, they rebored an original 1916 Model 92 out to handle the 357 cartridge. So I didn't do it, but somebody did, and it worked out great because I would really rather have it in that caliber, that cartridge. And it is original. Even the barrel seems to be. So it's pretty cool. I think they got the sights on backwards, or it's interesting. Somebody replaced the sights on it. I think the sights are the only part that's not original on the rifle. And somebody along the way installed the rear sight backwards, turned it around. If you can imagine how it slips into a dovetail. And apparently in the effort to get the sight further out, closer to the front sight, or to keep it away from the receiver so much, kind of like a scout rifle concept maybe. I don't know if they just wanted the rifle to be easier to handle, to carry around. The sight's really out of the way. If you've noticed that with maybe your favorite rifle, you pick it up and go into the field with it or to the range. Now, this would be one without a scope. Now, scopes definitely get in the way. For me, they're obnoxious, when I want to carry the gun the way I like to carry sometimes. Just grab the gun in the middle, wrap my big paws around it, and walk, Well, usually where you want to put your hand is where the sight is, whether it is a scope or metallic sight. Well, they sure took care of that, because you picked up this gun right at the balance point, and there's nothing there but barrel, good old octagonal barrel. That might be the reason. I don't know. I'm going to leave it like that. I forgot to mention it in the video. We did a video with it already. I forgot to mention anything about that. People will notice that, of course. But anyway, I got that coming up, and what else? Some other thing. Oh, we got some. I broke out my Gore. In fact, that's right. That was the gun I had out, the revolver at the last radio show. That 629, that beautiful stainless 629 Ford that has been, it's highly polished. So we did a video with that baby, and oh, I love that gun. I need to adjust the sights on it. It shoots a little bit to the left. I didn't realize that. Hadn't shot it that much, actually. That's the one I just haven't shot much. I really like it. But we've got that. I don't know what else we have coming up in terms of video. Well, I do know we've got some things, but I'm not going to give you any more information than you deserve. But we'll be throwing more lead. You can count on that. If I might be so bold as to swerve away from firearms, I have to admit I really miss teaching this fall. Where I taught has already started school. All the little teenagers are back in the classroom. I've had some communication with a couple of my colleagues, and they're back. Boy, I sure miss those goofball kids. On one hand, on the other hand, I don't miss some of the goofy in-service meetings and all the stuff that you have to put up with to be a teacher, quote unquote. But I really do miss the kids, and I guess it'd be one thing if I taught somewhere or at a grade level where the kids moved on to another location, were going to be gone anyway, or graduating, or something like that. But all those very same students that I spent the entire year with are right there, same building, just different classrooms and same hallways and all the same, doing all the same stuff, stupid stuff, right? Well, and not only last year's, but the students I had in the previous 4, 5, 6 years, they're still there too. So yeah, that's tough, not seeing them. I have to get to a ball game here before too long and see their funny faces. One of my close colleagues has sent me a couple of texts with pictures of some of them. They're posing for me and saying hi and all that kind of thing. But it just makes me miss them even more, seeing their ugly faces. But that's tough. Many of you probably have gone through some sort of retirement, or maybe you've just left a job or something, and you kind of can relate to that. But then again, if you work somewhere where you hated it, you didn't miss it a bit, maybe. Glad to be gone, and a good riddance kind of thing. But it's tough to not have teenagers to pick on. I mean, by this time, I've had several days and 20 or so classes opportunity to pick on kids, and it's really tough to not be able to do that. I joke about that, of course, not having the opportunity to pick on teenagers, but really, when you've spent so much of the last 23 years doing just that, it's there's a serious withdrawal problem there. Maybe I should see about joining or checking myself into one of these drug rehab facilities, and just walk right in, fill out the application. And sir, what is your addiction? Tormenting kids, So anyway, I joke about it, but I really do miss it. And some of you can probably kind of guess just from the videos. I give y'all a hard time sometimes. You don't get what I'm joking about, or that it is a joke. And you can about imagine, with a room full of teenagers, a target-rich environment, I used to call it. I guess I quit using that phrase, around the turn of the century, with school shootings and things, that That was such a perfect phrase, though. We used to joke about, having a classroom full of teenagers and being a target-rich environment for lame humor and, picking on them, giving them tests, quizzes, making their lives horrible, miserable. But I kind of got away from using that term, especially as a shooter. Believe it or not, I actually do have my limitations. I do have my self-control. Hard to believe, right? But I, who love a good joke and am always cracking jokes and pranking and everything else. But yeah, there is a limit, when it gets to be something serious. But I really do miss. I used to have so much fun with them. We worked hard, but in the process, they got lots of pop quizzes, and I had a pop quiz coin I carried every day. I would flip it at the beginning of class to determine whether they had a pop quiz that day, or not every day, but I would often, as they will vouch for. And it was a silver dollar I always carried. I'd get a new one each year, and then at the end of the year, on the last day of classes, I would just randomly flip it to one of the poor little kids that got picked on the most, maybe, and let him keep it. And that was his little souvenir from the year. I did that for about 12 years, I guess, the last 12 years teaching. I've just given it to some student on the last day, and I think they probably all have them. It's neat. I kept a record of who has them. Some of those kids probably have their own kids now, almost, but. Anyway, those poor kids didn't have a chance. I taught To Kill a Mockingbird, if you're familiar with that story, that novel, and a project that I'd had around the room someone had done years ago. I kept on a shelf of the tree, the Boo Radley tree, the Radley tree with the hollow in it. And I won't explain the novel to you in the story, but Boo Radley leaves notes, for the kids in the tree, the hollow of the tree, et cetera, et cetera. You don't know that till later on. All this sort of thing. It's a great novel if you've not read it. Better than the movie. The movie's great, but you need to read the novel if you really want to get the story. It deals with all sorts of bigotry, not just racism. It's a great story. But anyway, in the hollow of that tree, is just conveniently or coincidentally. In that hollow of that tree, when the kids would come into the classroom, there would be these little notes in there sometime. Whoa, just like Boo Radley left. There'd be a little note. Well, he didn't really leave notes much, but there would be a little note in the hollow of that tree. And I would let, some poor unsuspecting student could grab it, and they were always anxious to see if there was a note in the tree. But they had to read it. Whoever grabbed it had to read it to the class, whatever it was. And I'll be darned if quite often that little note did not read, "Give the little creeps a pop quiz." Really. And of course, I always had to go by whatever was on that note. And then that was pretty a common note. Give the creepy little kids a pop quiz. Occasionally, they would read, let's see, what did it read? Give the creepy little kids a pop quiz if they deserve it. Of course, there was a little bit of leeway there, right? Now, on rare occasions, there'd be one, give the creepy little kids a break and don't give them a pop quiz or something like that. So anyway, between that and the pop quiz coin, they did not have a chance. They really did not. I'm sure there are teenagers and young adults right now still having nightmares about that classroom and what they had to put up with me. So anyway, I kind of miss teaching them, guiding them through some really great literature, and hopefully, what would be the word? Furthering their critical thinking skills. That was a main thrust with me. We studied some really great literature, Whitman, Longfellow, Dickinson, of course, To Kill a Mockingbird, just great short stories and some great poetry. And I've always been partial to things that are interesting to read. Never wanted to bore the kids, pick out something just because I liked it. But yeah, it was just a little too much for their level. That's always a dumb thing for a teacher to do. A little self-serving there. Yeah, you might enjoy teaching Hamlet, but a little young for that. They're not going to appreciate it as much as you do. So what I liked, and over the years, I settled on some great short stories and novels and things that the kids actually liked. Now, everything we read wasn't like highly exciting to them necessarily, but as they got into it, they did. I mean, it's no fun. If you've ever taught, you know what I mean. It's no fun teaching something that's boring or that the kids hate. There's too many things out there that they will like and that have value and that are well written and that have a lesson and all that kind of thing. So anyway, I kind of miss that. Miss picking on the kids, miss teaching them, miss enlightening them. Well, I miss enlightening them. Put those two words together. Maybe that's what I was doing. I was probably misenlightening them, if there is such a word. But yeah, that's I have to get over it. It's kind of like when you drop anything. I remember when I gave up basketball, it was the same thing. When every fall you are, well, actually I worked out in the summers and tried to stay in shape because you would die in the fall if you did not. But once the summer or the fall running and conditioning began, but still, when you give up something like that, you get that weird twinge when the season comes back around. And it is the season for teaching, and I miss it a little bit. So anyway, look for a series of upcoming videos. I have 10 videos planned. Each one will be about 30 minutes apiece, and it's going to be on verb conjugations. So you all can look forward to that. Be ready to get excited. Just kidding. All right, enough on that. Anyway, speaking of kids and classrooms, man, as I gab here, it's just hit the news about I don't know if you call it a school shooting, but in Georgia, some idiot, crazy guy or whatever, don't know yet what his story is. Doesn't matter, but he'll probably be the same story. He's led a crazy life, or his parents didn't raise him right. No one likes him. I haven't seen a picture of him yet. He's probably a 20-something, 30-something white guy that is all bummed out over something, and went into a Georgia elementary school, from what I'm hearing, and maybe had an AK or some kind of rifle, and actually took some shots out the window at the police. I don't think anybody was hurt from what I'm hearing right now, but I've been saying for 6 months, but in the last month, here's school starting again. Sometime this year, there will probably be a school shooting. You hate to say that out loud. And what have we done? Back after Sandy Hook, we talked about it. All these schools did studies, even where I, taught. There was I think some consultants came in, they worked on all that, and all the administrators, dealt with it and figured out what the best thing to do, quote, unquote, best thing to do is, and actually change some things and refocus some things I didn't agree with. I knew what I was going to do, put it that way. There was, going to huddle in the closet it might be the best thing to do, but then there's some other options there and doors that need to be locked and things to do that I was going to do. And I had a baseball bat handy that someone just happened to have left in my classroom. Interesting that it was a brand new one and it was up out of sight, but just happened to have a baseball bat, an aluminum baseball bat. And, anyway, some other ideas I had, but, in lieu of being armed, which you could not be, as I've discussed before, just not worth it. I never did violate that, just the legal ramifications are just too extreme. And so there you go. All these schools, they're unarmed, and for the most part, and they've got some goofy little plan that is it might help in a minor situation, but in an extreme situation, if somebody comes in there determined to kill people and comes prepared to do it, it doesn't matter if they've just got a couple of 75-year-old revolvers and a bat and a club or and a knife and kill 20 people, 20 kids. I mean, teachers are defenseless, especially elementary schools. You've got mostly female teachers. You've got, all those little kids. Not to disparage females, there's females I wouldn't want to tangle with, but you know what I'm saying. And what's been done? What's really been done in 99% of schools around the country? Nothing that's of any real use. Nothing. If this guy, just like at Sandy Hook, shoot your way in and shoot up the place. Well, what's to stop that? There's no, and of course it can't be totally stopped. It's hard to stop a maniac that's bent on killing. Look around the world at the homicide bombings and all that kind of thing, suicide bombings, whatever you want to call them, things, suicide shootings and all of that. People are destined to commit suicide and take out some other people with them, and they're going to do it. All you can do is limit the number of people they can take out, which is pretty significant. If that's you or me or your child or the 10 children in the next classroom or the 30 children in another classroom that he doesn't get to because he is stopped, maybe somebody does kill 7 or 8 people, as tragic as that is, it sure the heck beats 45 or 60. I mean, people are totally defenseless in an elementary school, in any school. Y'all know that. I'm just blabbing about stuff we all know, and I guess being a little angry, not angry, but just upset to some extent that I don't know, that we have all these soft targets, these, get ready for it, here it is, gun-free zones, gun-free zones. Well, that school in Georgia, I guess, was a gun-free zone. Well, what was a gun doing in there? One went in yesterday or last night, whenever this happened, and could have been bad, looks like. So here we are. Anyway, we've not done anything. We definitely don't want to allow a gun in these schools. Oh, that would be dangerous if a teacher had a gun or an administrator. Wow, that's scary. We don't want that. There could be an accident. I mean, really, there could be an accident. Some child could get hurt. Well, let's see. How many million legal gun carriers do we have in the United States now? Is it like 8 million's the last number I heard? 8 million people carrying around a firearm daily. That's not even counting, I guess, police and other agents and services. So maybe it's 10 million people. If you add everybody, I don't know, ballpark, carrying a firearm around every day, most places they go, a loaded firearm. Well, how many accidents are you hearing about? Yeah, sure, there's that, unusual, that rare case, but it is extremely rare. I mean, the percentage is such a small, the decimal, you couldn't even, write it down. It's so small. You couldn't even talk about it. So, that versus, the possibility of a madman going into your children's elementary school and just having, free reign to do whatever he wants to do. I say he, it's probably going to be he, right? It's going to be some white guy in his 20s or 30s. Maybe 40. I mean, it's going to be some whacked out guy. Not to bring race into it, but we know the profile, don't we? We know who it's going to be. We know what he's going to look like. And we could almost write the life story of the person, like the one in Georgia. Now, apparently, this person didn't kill anybody. So I don't know. Maybe I don't know what happened there yet. I have to check the news, but we could almost write the story on these for the news, couldn't we? About how this child was raised, whether or not they were on drugs, attention deficit drugs, as they came through school, whether they were bullied or not, whether their parents spent a lot of time with them or not, what their parents are all about. We know, not 100%. We don't want to generalize too much, but the stories are very, very, very similar, aren't they? Anyway, I've ranted on that enough, I guess. It's just always a hot button for me, because having been a teacher and been in the classroom for so many years, I did other things, as I've talked about. I didn't teach my entire career. For 11 years, I was in business and doing other things and traveling. But the teaching is what I enjoyed the most. And because I believe it or not, I really am crazy, aren't I? Actually admitting to liking kids, but enjoying kids. But that's part of the reason. If you've taught, I know I've talked about this too, if you've ever taught before, worked with kids, maybe it was teaching Sunday school, whatever you've done, worked coaching Little League or something, as you get to know the kids, you really do get attached to them. They're like your own children. They really are. Day after day after day. You see them and throughout the day in your classroom, interact with them. You see them when they're in a good mood, in a bad mood, and they're doing well or not doing so well, and you work with them, and you see them in the sports. And I always tried to get to as many sporting events as I could, and watch especially the kids that were in my class, in my grade, and see them, on the sporting fields and basketball, football, and soccer. I didn't get to as many soccer matches, I have to admit. I've never been a big soccer fan, but I'd go occasionally just because I knew the kids playing and they loved to see their teachers there, as I did when I played sports. I remember, even in college, I played college ball, and fairly successful college career. I wasn't, all world or anything like that, but I looked over and saw one of my professors. I thought it was just cool. I saw him differently after that. I just did. And but anyway, you get attached to them. Kids generally, are fun to be around. It's when you get to know them, and they're fun. I just never did have a lot of problems. You had the occasional issue with a kid or a parent maybe, but it was rare. And by and large, it's like 98% good, fun, enriching, but you get really attached to them. And oh man, if someone, just came in to try to hurt them, you just do anything. They're your kids. You just really get to know them. You really do. I run into students. I had two different teaching careers. One was back in the 70s, and then in the 90s, and first decade, well, up until when, just last spring. And I had 11-year hiatus between there, doing other things. But I run into the kid. I even run into the kids from my second incarnation as a teacher that are grown, now, because I started doing that in 1990, my second time around. And it's just always neat. I remember for the most part, as senile as I am, I remember their names. I remember, I can tell you where they sat and all that. And from the first incarnation as a teacher back in the 70s, wow, those guys I taught, it was an all-boys school at the time. It's not, it's co-ed now, but at the time it was an all-boys school, and private, prep school, college prep school. And those guys are like 50 years old now, so it's funny, or older, and it's neat to run into them, and which I do occasionally, not very often, but you remember them. It's just you get attached to them. Is my point, more than you can imagine if you haven't taught before. When I say attached, I mean they're part of your life, just like your own kids, or if you have neighbors that have kids, and you see them all the time, you see them regularly. They're not your own kids, but you just get to know them, and they're just part of your circle of friends, acquaintances, part of your life, and you hate it. It makes it even harder to think about something happening to them, But anyway, such is life. I don't know if the political forces are going to change on all this or not. We just love our gun-free zones, and occasionally they end up not being so gun-free, don't they? And tragedy occurs. So enough on that. Recently, getting back to guns, recently I had a message. Somebody was just thanking me for not making fun of his gun, because some people do. And anyway, I thought I'd touch on that. I guess I haven't been accused of that lately, the last year or two. I don't know. Maybe people will get to know us better. But I think earlier the first year or two, occasionally, not very often, but I'd get a criticism of not being hard enough on guns and liking too many, being too positive about firearms, that all the firearms I'd get in. And maybe I plead guilty to that. It's hard for me to find a gun I don't like. They're just fun, and they're different. Some are different, no doubt about it, and they may not be my cup of tea. But if they function, they're out there on the market. They've been out there on the market, and they generally work. I still have the question: who am I to bash that firearm in a video necessarily? That's not the purpose. We want to bring information to you and the enjoyment of the shooting sports and be realistic. But I just don't feel comfortable bashing some firearm, making a bash video, because I can make any firearm malfunction if I want to, and I could demonstrate or do a video with any firearm that I happen to run across that's having a bad day. And but as I've mentioned before, I think what I'm doing is I'm putting up an aberration. This Glock 26, I could probably get in a Glock sometime, either purchase it or a T&E gun, and there might be something wrong with it. Maybe the extractor is chipped, or which that's really rare to have a problem with these modern, high-tech firearms. But I could do a video on that Glock 26. I'll say it turns out the extractor, they put the wrong extractor in the thing. I say that because I bought a used Glock one time. Well, it's my old Glock 27, the one I used has night sights on it. It's the one I used in the 230-yard, shooting video. And I don't know how many other videos I've done on that particular one. It's an old Glock 27, has the 40 caliber S&W on the slide. It goes back that far. For the first year or two, they actually put 40 S&W on the slide, and they quit doing that. But I bought that. Actually, I bought it. I bought that one at the Jolton Gun Shop. And it's funny, before I even really knew those guys, I bought that one there, and brought it home and shot it, and it wasn't extracting right. It was malfunctioning. Whoa, what's wrong with this? Because I looked at the gun, looked fine. A Glock, what can be wrong with a Glock? Hardly. But it was malfunctioning, and I got to looking at it, and the extractor didn't seem to be, fitting exactly flush. That's back in the old ones. You had the flush extractor when there's not around the chamber and everything. And it just didn't look right. I went to my handy-dandy little Glock supplies kit, happened to have a backup extractor, and popped it in there, and of course it's worked fine ever since. So somebody along the way replaced the extractor, put the wrong extractor in it. And I'm not sure I've ever figured out what that extractor, I still have it. I don't know what it's just for a different caliber or something. And, it's worked fine. So there you go. What if I had bought that gun, a couple of weeks ago, and it was malfunctioning? I could have rushed and done a video on that. Oh, look here, we got a Glock that's malfunctioning. They're not all good. Look at this one, and gotten a lot of views and attention. Maybe it could have called the video "malfunctioning Glock" or "Glocks are horrible" or something. I don't know. But anyway. And I'm not making fun of anybody that does that. I was just reminded by the message, and that's part of the reason we don't do it. Whatever the gun is, whether it's a high point or anything else, there are people out there that have those. Maybe they can't afford a better gun, and it works for them, and they are just tickled pink to have that gun. I forget it. Many of you and I probably sometimes forget that where we can afford to maybe we have to save up, but we can go ahead and buy any firearm we really want. It might take us a week, a month, or 2 months, or 3 months, or a year or something to put that money aside. But if we really want maybe even a SIG, if we happen to like SIGs a lot, we can figure out a way to get that SIG, that $1,000 SIG, if we really want it, maybe. And so we forget, that there are people putting $10 aside is really, really difficult, and even buying any kind of firearm is just way out there. It's like, you or me buying a Mercedes or something, trying to get to the point where they can do that. And so they get that high point, or they get that other $200 gun, or whatever it might be. And, we might scoff at it a little bit, but you might even make jokes about it, but I'm not going to make fun of it if it works, if it's a gun and it works. And, or if it's a good gun that's not working, it's a gun with a good reputation, a company with a good reputation, and one happens to not work or whatever, we're not going to put up an aberration showing, just because it'd be cool, that a SIG P226 doesn't work. We finally found one that malfunctions and has a problem. Here's a big video on it. Let's all bash SIG or something. But anyway, we don't do that. So I'll go along with the criticisms of. I'll just accept the criticisms of not seeming to, have negative feelings for any firearm. Because I really don't have negative feelings. There's some I don't like the style of, and I don't like the trigger action maybe, and just different things. Doesn't suit me, but suits other people, and that's the key thing. It's just not my job to make you feel bad about your choice of firearms, So anyway, another thing too, I take it as a challenge to some extent if there's a firearm that has a bad trigger or a less than desirable trigger, or maybe it's even the old double action to single action pistols that I'm not as fond of, even though I have some, like the Beretta, Model 92. I talk every now and then about how I prefer a consistent trigger pull, first shot, second shot, third shot. I want the same trigger pull preferably. But I can shoot that gun okay, and if that's all I had, I do fine with it. And I take it as a bit of a challenge when I have that firearm out, or the SIG, a SIG. I guess I don't own a SIG now, do I? Think of it. No, I don't. Okay. And I just kind of take it as a challenge to try to shoot it well, first shot to second shot, and so I don't know. I can enjoy any firearm. They're all interesting to me, whether it's a lever gun or a double action to single action pistol, a Glock action or Colt single action. They're all pretty cool, and everybody has their own preference. But if a gun really is trash, well, of course, again, as I pointed out before, we're not going to go out of the way to review it or get one in to shoot. I have no interest in that. Which brings up another subject, I guess. I do get a lot of requests for certain firearms that I seem to never get in, brands of firearms. There are some brands of firearms I've barely scratched the surface on that are fairly popular out there. The gun shelves are full of them, maybe. There are lots of them. And maybe they're not my favorite brand of firearms, and it's another reason I don't go out of my way to get a hold of those. Although there are some of those I need to do. I do get a lot of requests for some of those that are not my favorite firearms. They're not from my favorite company, put it that way. Maybe the company does have an iffy reputation, even though they sell an enormous number of firearms. And I just kind of, on a personal level, I just always kind of avoided them because of that mixed reputation. And there's other choices that don't have that reputation, But a lot of people are not aware of that yet. And then plus, some of those firearms are lower priced. And so a lot of people are curious. And so I do need to do a better job getting into some of those other areas and do it without bashing the company and, provided the gun works and everything. Anyway, I don't know. That make any sense? No. Do I ever make sense? No. Well, I guess I've rambled enough for for 1 week or two. Or what? Again, we're not on a weekly schedule with this. Just whenever I'm in the mood. Got some stupid things to talk about. Hope I didn't get off firearms too much today. I know I got carried away there on the school issues and all that. But I guess that's what I do with this. Just whatever's on my mind. And this is mainly for the loyal, quote unquote, viewers and listeners that have been with us a long time, or maybe you have not, and just I don't know, part of the reality show, I guess. In the videos, we just shoot mostly and talk about the firearms, but when I get in a vlog or a radio show, I'm liable to gab and ramble and talk about anything. I think some people just do that in their regular videos. That's kind of what they do. We don't. And, well, I do ramble maybe too much in some videos, especially the earlier ones. But I try to get most of the rambling focused over here in the radio shows and when I sit down to a vlog. Although the vlogs aren't that long. So, I don't know. If you're kind of new and you stumbled upon this radio show as your first one, maybe if you could, oh man, I know it would be painful, extremely painful, but if you could go back and listen to the radio shows and the vlogs, you would learn a lot about me, as if you care. You'd learn a lot about the project and a lot of random things that you might have wondered about. Then, of course, watching the FAQ videos. Anybody who's gone through all the FAQ videos and then the vlogs and the radio shows knows a whole lot more than they ought to know, probably, right? Not to mention, and there actually are quite a few people, they write me and tell me they've seen everything and they've listened to everything, and wow, there's a group of sick people out there, right? We probably need to come up with a name for them. Anybody who has actually seen everything we've done or listened to everything we've done, we had to come up with a moniker for those people other than just insane. So anyway, good to talk to you again. Y'all are pretty quiet again. I really haven't heard from many of you, but during this broadcast. But I know you've got things to do. I can see you over there washing dishes and reloading, and that sort of thing. And again, I have warned some of you: you're not getting dressed before you listen to these. Before you open up the computer screen, you need to get dressed because I have that special app where I can see you. Which is fine, because most of you are just cleaning your guns. I see you there reloading ammunition, and I've learned a few things just watching how you do it and your techniques and the various powders and bullets that you're using. But then again, some of you, you're just not very discreet. So get your clothes on before you listen in the future, especially if you're on the computer. Now, those of you on your phone, it's not as big an issue, depending. So my app doesn't reach through phones, just computers. So if you want to be safe, just listen to it on a phone, okay? All right, so you really do understand why my poor students suffered so much, don't you? All right, well, I'll talk to you later. It's been fun chatting at you, and hope you get a chance to shoot this week maybe, or buy a gun, or buy some ammo if you can find it, right? Anyway, good luck with that, and y'all have a great week. Life is definitely good. You've been listening to the Hickok45 radio show. See you on the range.